Hey guys, we're on our way to the building again, and here we are riding down the road. We're going to take this little bit of time that we have. I'm not sure how much time we will actually spend on this topic because it's an article that has been written. The man's name is Randall Caselman, and he is a preacher, and as he has written this article, Kelly was using this in one of our bulletins, so as she read some of this to me, I thought that's our next video. I actually made the comment, that's our next video, so let's just use that as a launching point for the conversation to talk about a few things that we obviously need to hear and things that we really need to adhere to. So we'll mention a little bit of this. You want to say something before I get started, or you want me to just start off?
No.
All right.
Go ahead.
The title for the article is Affair-Proof Marriages. On a dark, rainy night, if you saw a sign, detour, bridge ahead, bridge out ahead, would you resent the sign or be thankful for it? Thou shalt not commit adultery is such a sign. God created sex for procreation and wrapped it in enjoyment. But for it to be a blessing instead of a curse, He also placed it within the context, the limits of marriage. Going beyond the limits, ignoring the warning signs in sexual relationships is the curse of our generation. I can agree with that comment. It has led us to marital bankruptcy. All of God's gifts have limitations. Water is a great blessing, but misuse, life would be impossible without it, but misuse or abuse it, and we drowned. Fire is a gift, but we had better not abuse it. God's warning signs are for our good. His commandments are not burdensome. We live in a society which not only accepts having affairs, but encourages them. Television is filled with premarital and extramarital sex. The entertainment media has little or no morals because they have little or no convictions. Jesus plainly taught that adultery is sin. God didn't create us to have affairs, but to be faithful to our spouse. God created man and woman, then placed them together in families. This is where we find our fulfillment, completeness. It is in family that life is enriched and blessed. Therefore, at all costs, we must protect our family from danger and destruction. What are some of the things we can do to affair-proof our marriages? And as I read these words, even still, this should be the goal of every couple. Whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe in the afterlife or not, whether you believe in really any truth or not, you should have the goal of keeping your marriage healthy, prosperous, keeping it between you and your spouse. Marriage is something that we have lost, I think, the definition to. We're using marriage to be more of a contract agreement than we are anything else. Well, I've just made a contract. I can void it anytime I want to. So,
and this is an old book.
This book is, well, they don't give dates, do they?
They don't. You'd have to look it. I think you have to look it up. But it's an older version. What's the version?
27.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. It's an older version because there's 130 something now. So, it's funny to me when I go through these articles, the views and how a lot of them change, but a lot of them are the same, and then there's so many things that have to be added to it. It was talking about television and things like that, and then of course there's so many things that have to be added, but television was the biggest at that time, and it's still huge, but ours is more streaming and social media and things like that.
Have, quote, television.
Yeah.
I mean, the satellite systems that came out, I can remember when I was a kid, we had one of the giant satellites that was mounted on a pole in the concrete, and you had to go out there, and you either had one of two options. You could have an electronic motor on it to change the pitch of the satellite, or you had to go out there and crank it. I can remember we marked ours with hacksaw marks. We would take a hacksaw and mark the pipe that it was mounted on when you would turn it, and then we took some of my grandmother's fingernail polish and painted in the marks so that we could see them after it rusted over for a little while. So, just that satellite back then, that was a big deal. Now, look where technology has taken us. You can watch a movie on your phone. I mean, a full-length movie, because the service is so fast that you can download anything you want to download. So,
but the technology has changed, but the points.
But the sin is still the
points
same.
Are spot on.
Yeah, the sin is still the same. So, no matter what generation you have lived in, whether you go back into the 20s and 30s during the Prohibition time and the kind of coming through the beginning of most of what is going on in our nation today, if you were alive during that period of time, there were certain sins that would, be available to you at that time. Now, I mean, really the imagination is the only thing limiting you to what is available to you today.
Right.
So the first point is make a commitment to live by God's standards. That pretty much should be an obvious one for Christians, for those who live according to truth, according to any kind of standard. You have to have a standard. Well, whose standard are you going to go by? Are you going to go by the wife's standard? Are you going to go by the husband's standard? Are you going to come together and agree upon a standard? What's going to be the standard for your marriage? Well, shouldn't it be something higher? Shouldn't it be something that's got a little more wisdom than you've got a little more experience than you've got a little more insight into what life actually is than what you have? I know that when we were young, we had the ideas of what we thought marriage would be, and usually it came from some kind of imaginary fairy tale, I guess. But the longer you live, the more real life you get to apply to your marriage, and marriage isn't a fairy tale sometimes. It is, such a wonderful thing at times, but sometimes life can throw you a curveball, and it's just not a bed of roses all the time. So what he says is make a commitment to live by God's standards. David asked, how can a man keep his way pure? Psalm 119:9. The answer is to live according to the answer is to live according to cultural standards, right? Wrong, he says. The only way to keep oneself pure is by living according to God's word. Look at the cultural standards just in the time frame that I've mentioned. Let's just use the last 100 years. Look at the cultural standards that were then that aren't now. 100 years ago, you were an absolutely demoralized person if you were, be careful with that one, if you were doing some of the things that people do today as commonplace. I mean, you would be so labeled and so run out of town for doing some of the stuff that we in our culture do on a daily basis. Don't compare your marriage to others. That's the second one he did. Don't compare your marriage to others. Comparing ourselves to others always leads to coveting. Our neighbor's wife, houses, cars, jobs, etc. This is a violation of the last commandment from Sinai. Exodus 20:17.
Do you remember which point I read to you that was just so profound? That one. Yeah. So we ain't got that yet.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
I didn't want to miss that one.
Yeah.
I think of when you say that.
I'm just gonna touch them all.
Yeah, that's good. I think of Facebook. I'm sorry, but I think of Facebook when you say don't compare your marriage to others. I think Facebook is a huge place to where that can happen, and it's not even real, like we've talked about before, but I think that can be done in social media for sure.
One of the things that I think is quite absurd about how we do things right now is people can know everything about your life. They can know everything about your taste, your preferences. They can know everywhere you go. They can even know what the inside of your home looks like based upon what you're posting, based upon what you're advertising out there. One of our sons was telling us about a video that he was watching about this guy who's a hacker, and I thought this was pretty interesting. He said that he has the ability to hack into facial recognition programs, and that he can take a picture of you and run it through a facial recognition program, and he can find pictures that were posted on the internet, but he can also find pictures that had never been posted. Simply because these facial recognition programs go and they search through all these databases. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of everybody out there floating around. So it's almost scary to know how much of our sensitive information is out there, but how much of that did we put out there ourselves? How much of that did we just take and we dumped dump trucks full of information out there into the internet. 50 years ago, we'd have never done that.
Yeah, I know. But we know that we compare ourselves individually to others, especially women. but so we know that it follows that we're going to compare our marriages to others. So we don't need to do that. That's going to cause turmoil, and I think that's what he's saying.
But everybody knows that every picture that's ever been posted is the absolute raw footage of the truth, right?
But even off Facebook, even in everyday life, even at work, even when you're sitting at work talking to somebody and they're talking about their marriage, and then you're like, oh, well, their marriage seems better than mine, or oh, well, they don't deal with what I go through, or you never compare your marriage to somebody else's, because everybody's going through something. And no marriage is perfect.
Some people are able to hide it more than others.
No marriage is perfect. And at the end of the day, it's not your marriage. It's their marriage. So don't do that, because
it's their way of doing it.
It's a danger.
That's right.
To do that for sure.
The next point, meet the needs of your spouse exclusively. That's a pretty big point. Meet the needs of your spouse exclusively. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband, 1 Corinthians 7 and verse number 3. Men, you have a duty to your wife. Ladies, you have a duty to your husband. Our marriages cannot grow unless and until we meet one another's needs. We must understand that her needs are not his needs, and vice versa. Paul admonishes us to meet and fulfill one another's needs, not our own. Let me challenge you, he says, to ask your spouse, what are your needs? Then pay close attention to what is said and just try. So, meeting the needs of your spouse in a world that promotes having your needs met is kind of an oxymoron. And I think that's why so many of our marriages, that is why our marriage was in trouble, is because we were trying to meet our own needs instead of considering the needs of our spouse. So that's a huge point. That's a huge point. Any comments on that one?
I just think it was good that the point that he made, saying that your needs are not the same.
Your needs aren't the same.
So you need to meet each other's needs, but they're going to be different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you still need to meet each other's needs.
Well, you need. It's good that your needs are different, because if they weren't, wouldn't that be a very bland relationship? Become the best of friends. It's easy to leave a lover. It's tough to leave a best friend. That's huge.
That was a huge one too.
That was such a great comment. It's easy to leave a lover, but it is tough to leave a best friend. He says, let me give you 5 ways to become the best friend of your spouse. Time, and time. So he gives you 5 reasons. People get to be best friends by spending time together. Many affairs occur because people spend more time with others than with their spouse.
So true.
Very true.
And not just others, it's things, it's it's not just others. It's work, it's ball games, it's shopping, get nails done. Think of all the things that we don't put time with our spouse on the top of the list. We just don't. We end up a lot of marriages we know of personally. A lot of marriages, the husband goes one way and the wife goes another, and it's almost like they live 2 different lives. So, that's I don't know. I can't fathom that. But that was that getting on your nerves.
It's past getting on my nerves.
I can't. That's not even something I can even imagine. But a lot of times that's, and then you're thinking, why did you get married in the first place, or why? Not that they should.
Well, we need to get married. We need to have the contractual agreement that we're business partners. Marriages today are business endeavors.
Exactly.
They're not relationship endeavors. They're business.
You
I need somebody.
Spending time together. Why?
Well, you enjoy spending time together until the newness wears off. You enjoy spending that time together to learn who each other are, to say, well, I wonder how this person would react to this. So you have to invest all that time to know if they're going to be a good business partner. You've got to find out their work ethic. You got to find out, are they willing to struggle along with you? Are they willing to do certain things? Are they willing to put out the effort? And if they are, then man, yeah, we'll marry them because they can pay the bills with us. It's a business endeavor. It really is. It's a monetary incentive.
But that's what you're going to get.
Married.
Maybe they're okay with that. That's what you're going to get at the end of the day. You're going to have that. That's the quality of marriage you're going to have. It's not going to be high quality because you don't put your time with your spouse at the top of the list. Top of your priority list.
That's right. So time with your spouse. That's huge. That's
Huge.
huge. Avoid sexual fantasies. Control your mind. Sexual sins, like all others, begin in thought. That's huge too. That's a good one. We don't fall into immorality. We think ourselves into it. That's kind of a big point right there, isn't it? We don't fall into immorality. We think ourselves into it. James says, but each is tempted when he is by his own lusts, his own evil desires, he is drawn away and enticed. James 1:14. Jesus said, the man who looks on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery, has had an affair with her already in his heart. Matthew 5:28. Mental adultery is a sin, just like physical adultery is. Avoid sexual fantasies. Any comments?
I mean, it's true. People say, with affairs and things, they say, oh, it just happened. Well, it never just
No, you
happens.
had to think about it or it wasn't going to happen.
So yes, it starts. I think in the brain.
Definitely, it
with your
starts
thoughts.
with some what if. It starts with the grass is greener on the other side. It starts as, I wonder what that is like. And that is what he's talking about with sexual fantasies. Never become emotionally involved with the opposite sex. Never look to one of the opposite sex for emotional support, comfort, understanding, and sympathy. Emotional adultery, like mental adultery, leads to the physical act.
It's true.
Several years ago in a counseling session, a lady told me, I have found a man who is so supportive of me. He is understanding and sympathetic. He is all the things I never found in my husband. Uh-oh. He has never touched me, but if he does, I'm a goner. That's what she said. He has never touched me, but if he does, he's getting it all.
Oh, me.
I'm a goner.
Wow.
We must look to our spouse for emotional support. I mean, can you imagine in a counseling session saying that?
I wonder what he said back to her.
I hope he didn't touch her.
Yeah, that's bad. But, it's once again though, she thinks she's saying all these things about this guy. She thinks all of these things. She doesn't know 100%.
Well, it's really easy.
Even the people that you think are this and whatever, you know are not really. After you get to know them.
It's really easy. Even, let's say the guy is genuinely concerned about her. Let's say the guy is genuinely empathetic toward her or sympathetic toward her. It's really easy to do that for a few hours a day at a time, a week, or whatever the situation is that she has found herself in. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's just a neighborhood friend. Maybe it's her, I don't know who it could be. But whomever it is, he's lending support to her, maybe innocently, thinking he's helping her, but in reality what she's doing is she's inviting him into her emotional realm. He's inviting her into that. She is inviting him into something he may not even know he's playing into. If he doesn't, he's an idiot, but he may be an idiot. Plenty of us are.
And surely he couldn't be pretending to be something he's not.
No.
For the benefit of himself.
Nah, men don't do that. Men don't pretend to be interested in you just for the opportunity to take advantage of the mental distress and situation that you might find yourself in if your marriage is struggling at home.
Right.
Men wouldn't do that.
Right.
Watch your dress. Modesty should be the goal of every Christian. Sensuous dress sends a message that we are open to sexual possibilities. Some dress sensuously because they want to send that message. Others are just naive. I used to think people were naive. I did. I used to think that. Now I think there are less and less and less naive people out there and more and more and more advertisers out there. They're advertising their intent. When a woman wears immodest apparel, she knows she's wearing immodest apparel. She can look in the mirror and see things that a man is going to see and know that those things are going to be immodest. She knows that. He says,
She does.
I know a woman who was super critical of another for her dress, saying
This is a good point.
saying she was sending the wrong message. The next day I saw her at the post office in pants that looked as if she had been melted and poured into them. We must be careful of the message we send, intentionally or unintentionally. A good rule of thumb for Christian women is to ask your spouse. This certainly applies to men also. To ask your spouse. Women and men, he says, watch your dress. Watch your relationship with others. Recent studies have shown that most affairs occur between close friends, co-workers, and family members. Here are some suggestions. Never talk about your marital problems with the opposite sex. That's good advice.
It's huge.
And if you are talking about your marital problems with someone of the opposite sex, what are your intentions of having that other person know all of the intimate things that you are telling them? What is the person's intent who wants to receive all of those intimate details? Why are you discussing all these things with someone of the opposite sex? You know, that just doesn't make good sense, does it? It's not rational for you to be doing that. It's not rational. So anybody who's doing that, there's either intent on one or the other's behalf. What's the intent? Never go fishing for compliments. Never be lavish with your compliments. Be aware of electricity between you and others. Avoid the extended look, the lingering touch. Paul tells us that there is not to be even the hint of sexual immorality. Minimize the opportunities, he says. Don't place yourself in situations where you'll be tempted. Not mentally, not emotionally, and not physically. Don't be misled. Evil communications corrupt good character. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 33. Minimize the opportunities. If there are no opportunities for you to do anything wrong, then there's no opportunity for you to convey a message that's inadequate. If you put yourself in a position to where some man is hitting on you or some woman is hitting on you and you don't remove yourself from the position, you enjoy it, you need it, or you want it.
And be prepared. You will be treated if you let these things know, let these views known to people. You will be treated weird, or treated like you're weird, or you're strange, or you're too conservative, or you're churchy, or you're because it's
holier than thou.
Yes, it's actually hard to go to work, in the public, a secular job, to go to work and to put these practices to practice. It's hard to do because that's not the world we live in. That's not what's accepted. That's not the norm, the social norm.
Risque behavior is more prevalent than you realize.
If somebody comes up and you say, just like, talking to somebody, having a coworker that's a male friend, and then, talking about you saying, hey, I really don't feel comfortable talking to you about your marital problems. Or I don't want to talk to you about my marital problems or whatever. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. And then you're going to be marked as this, what do they call people? Like conservative, just a conservative churchy person. I don't know what I'm trying to think of. The word I'm trying to think of. Do you?
Well, conservative churchy person.
That I'm saying, I'm not
in a good way, in a bad way.
In a bad way, like that's what you're going to be. You're going to be marked. Not that we're not ashamed to be Christians, and we shouldn't be ashamed to be Christians. I'm just being real and saying when you're in the work, when you're out working, and you put all these things to practice, you are going to be over on your own. So there may be times to where you're having lunch by yourself. You're doing this by yourself. You're having to pull away and go somewhere. And you have to do that. You have to start doing that because if not, you're gonna get pulled into it because it's just like it's peer pressure almost, but in the adult peer pressure.
Yeah.
In the workforce and things like that because that's the norm. That's the norm. Is anything goes. Talk to anybody about anything, and dress how you want to and all this stuff. So that's the norm. So this is all stuff that's not on the norm. Go ahead.
The last point, and I love this one. Begin your own affair at home. Renew the intimacy with your spouse. Become aware of his or her needs and work to fulfill them. Spend time together doing things you both enjoy. Send flowers. Take a weekend together. Leave the children with others. Ask God to refresh the relationship. A recent survey among Christians who had had an extramarital affair revealed these common activities. They were not reading their Bible daily. They felt no accountability to the church, and they thought it could never happen to them. Start your own affair at home. We went to a marriage retreat up in the Smoky Mountains. We've mentioned that in some of the videos. One of the speakers said he and his wife actually send texts back and forth. Like they text each other and have very intimate dialogue back and forth with each other, almost as if they were doing something risque, but it was with their spouse. And there's nothing wrong with having a very intimate, spicy exchange over whatever communication you deem necessary, whether it's writing letters or leaving little notes or whatever it is, to let your spouse know that you are 100% fully interested, but yet also invested in them. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to do exactly what this point is saying, to begin your own affair at home. Have that lure for love at home. Have that desire that you can't wait to get back into the presence of your spouse when y'all are separated. Have that burning desire for each other, and if you do, you'll find ways to have all these other things worked into what you want in your marriage. You really will. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think the last one just sums everything up. You know, if you have problems, don't talk to somebody else, talk to your spouse. Go home and talk to your spouse. Communicate with them. And everything that you said don't do with somebody else, go home with your spouse. Yeah. And it'll, you know, and I think one of the things with that is that one or the other, either one's, you know, not willing to do that, you know, of the two of you. And usually it's the woman, because her emotions get in the way. So, you know, if women could let their, you know, put their emotions aside as far as not, you know,
not thinking the husband's up to no good, but that he's actually doing something for the benefit of their marriage.
Or not like being in punishment mode.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, put their wall down and just...
And let their husband romance them?
Yes. And not the actions going on through the day change any of this stuff. Just love each other no matter what. Forgive each other, love each other, and just...
Romance each other.
Romance each other.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.